So welcome back, everybody. This time, Joyce is actually going to be on my channel. I feel like I've been featured on her channel, gosh, like 3 times in a row. So I wanted to have her come on and talk about the INFJ, but not kind of the standard like, hey, top 5 tips for the INFJ, or 10 secrets of the INFJ, or 10 ways to tell if the INFJ loves you. Like none of that. It's really just be like, what's the worst advice that you can give an INFJ? And I've asked her to kind of come up with the top 5 like worst pieces of advice for the INFJ. And I'm sure I should have done some research for this, but I'm sure there is like a lot of videos that are out there that are like you could easily contrast and say, well, I've seen this here. This is what they said is good advice, but it's actually bad, and here's why. So, Joyce, thanks for joining me.
It's really great to be on. So I took the bad advice in a very interesting direction. I just came up with literally the worst things you could like. I created good advice, and then I just did the opposite for the bad advice.
Okay, let's get into it. What would be your first one, or just yeah, what's your first one?
All right, INFJs, you should please everyone. Just spread yourself so thin, and you should never have any time for yourself and always prioritize other people first. All of the narcissists, everyone who demands of you, the takers, give them all of you. So you
Oh
have
yeah,
nothing left for yourself. Just you're just a giving machine. That's your sole purpose. And if you neglect that, then you got to
never reach
do.
fulfillment. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that one. That's a good one because then, yeah, then you don't have any time for yourself. Then you can never, you never get to like, have any self-reflection because it's all always, given to somebody else. So yeah, that's a quick way to fulfillment. It sounds like sublimity, transcendence.
It really is. It's all about it's all about meeting people all the way so they don't even have to do anything.
Meet them all the way on their side. Don't even, if they live figuratively and literally, 2 hours away, just go the full distance. Don't even have them meet you halfway.
Exactly.
Good
Yeah.
tip. We're off to a really good start.
And then the second tip is hold on to grudges and become bitter and resentful. Because,
Mm.
people are wrong sometimes and you have to just keep that, be stubborn about your hate towards people. The world
Right.
isn't ideal, and so you should proactively make sure you keep a list of every person you hate and what you will do to get revenge. Because hate is meant for you to fester in it, because
Oh yeah.
if you don't keep it, no one else will. So I think this is particularly interesting because with INFJs, as intuitive types or people with high intuitive functions,
Hmm.
you can see the potential in things. So that could make people a little bit more predisposed to um, noticing things that might be wrong with other things because it's not up to its potential.
Right.
And so you should just hold on to that hate until it becomes everything about you and that you're enveloped by that.
Yeah. You should really hold on to it so much so that you have to be hospitalized for like some sort of neuroses or be on medication. I think that's a good tip. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, because that yeah, that's a good. I feel like that is an underappreciated thing that many INFJs aren't doing but should do.
they should. Yeah. And so once you please everyone, you're going to hate them after a while. And I would just tell you, keep on to that hate. And keep going.
So let it bottle it up is what you're saying. Like you're saying, bottle it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, man, this is some groundbreaking stuff.
Why live if you're not living half glass full? Am I right?
Well, I feel like that hatred and anger and that suppression drives you. If you keep that anxiety high, you don't even need to sleep.
It's true.
Productivity.
You don't need anyone else to motivate you. Your own hate for mankind or for a person will drive you. Every single sport you play, you'll just imagine their head getting squashed by your weapon of choice. It's going to be all you think about. You're going to occupy your brain with this hate.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add to that is it should, and it's not just something that like a big thing that someone did to you. It could be a small inconvenience that you can get really upset about and never talk about it. I think that would be good too.
Exactly. Yeah. Little thing someone forgot the milk in your Starbucks coffee, they're
Yeah,
enemy now.
you should really hold on to that and never return to that place ever again. Post a really bad review about the place. Call out the person if you can remember their name too. This is all good stuff.
Exactly. It's flawless thinking.
What's
And
next?
so now that we're at it, there's third piece of advice, which is to be a perfectionist, be afraid to make a mistake. So
Mm,
anything you do, you have to get it right the first time, or
mhm.
else you're a failure and irredeemable and wretched. And so everything you create just must be gold standard.
Right.
So
And
you
yeah,
must not allow your
yeah, and if you don't think you'll be 100% success at it, you shouldn't try.
absolutely give up right away. Well, your dreams are dreams. Sometimes it's the you have to give up to show those people that you can kill dreams
Right.
because yeah, exactly.
That's a really good. If you guys remember one thing about this interview, it's INFJs give up right away. Okay.
Yeah.
So that perfection. I don't know if that's maybe accessing or letting your TI get a little bit too out of control, but I would say let it just get out of control and take over.
Yeah, never start in the first place.
That's why you can't fail. That's just being smart. That's just being smart.
Exactly. This is ironclad. This is the perfect solution.
Great framework to live within. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a third one. Man, that's good.
And that will lead to the fourth piece of advice, which is be like everyone else.
Mm,
And so, because you never try anything new, you never make many mistakes, you're just going to be a cookie cutter. You're going to be like everyone around you.
yeah,
And this is a part of FE blending taken to the max. If
right.
you choose to, oh, I don't have my own form of individuality because I don't want to offend people, I should be
Sure.
more like the people around me. And just allowing yourself to become the ultimate sheep. Like, why would you want to be a mediocre sheep when you can be the perfect sheep?
Ultimate cheat. Right, because, you make a good point because, you know, all the idols, all the people that have ever changed the world, changed humanity, have always just played it cool and decided to go with the flow. No one that's ever gone outside the flow has achieved anything. So what you should do is whatever the standard is, meet that 100%. You don't want to deviate. People don't like deviators.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
just be that single grass piece within all the other grass pieces. No individuality, conformity to the max. You don't need
Hmm.
to live in a utilitarian oh, wait, no, wait, that's not the right word. It's a totalitarian
Yes.
society.
Yes.
To live in a place where you can just conform. You can already
Hmm.
do it right now at your
Yeah.
own convenience. Your parents never believed in you, so you should just be like everyone else.
Man, it's like, I mean, who doesn't want to be a grain of sand on the beach?
Yeah, it's no pressure.
No pressure. And that's what life is about.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, if you do live up to your potential, then you risk falling from that potential. So just never become that great anyway.
hmm yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, three and four go together, which is, yeah, just give up right away. And then, what you just said, I mean, three and four. Ugh, I'm wondering if what, I mean, you've kind of built up. I wonder what five's going to be. Tell us what your fifth one is.
All right, INFJs, your fifth piece of advice is to stay small and don't speak up. Keep your insights to yourself.
Oh, yeah.
No one wants to hear them. No one wants wisdom these days. They just want something very clickbait. So give them what they want. Just
Yeah.
stay small. Don't try to be who you were meant to be.
Hmm.
Neglect your divine design. Don't see
Oh, yeah.
anything in your being because your whole life you might have not been valued by people, and so you want
Hmm.
to live up to people's potential or what they think you could be.
Yeah.
And so if they think poorly of you, you should go into that self-fulfilling prophecy, become as bad as they think that you could be.
Yeah, I think that what you should do in speech is to just quote whatever's at your local Hobby Lobby. So if people say, "What do you think about politics?" You just say, "Live, laugh, love." You know, if people ask you how you're feeling, you just say, "I can't complain. Everything's good." You never say anything that is not. The more cookie cutter, the better. The more likable you are.
It's deflection. Yeah, if you just stay simple on the surface, no one will ever inquire into who you actually are, so you never have to reveal anything of substance. And that's the soft underbelly, right? Why would you want to show someone the turtle's soft underbelly? You gotta survive. This is a survival mechanism, all
Yes.
right?
So sounds like what you've given us here is a playbook for what people aren't doing. So they're doing all the opposite of those. And then what's happening to the INFJs that do all that other stuff do the opposite. Like showcase their thoughts, go big, let themselves be noticed. What happens when they do that? Obviously it's not working. It doesn't work.
Yeah, so obviously I recommend the opposite of the advice that I gave. And I exaggerated, but I actually do think these are common struggles that INFJs deal with. And I
Okay.
just wanted to say them so exaggeratedly, it might
Yeah.
have hit someone in a better way. And so these are anti-role models. You know,
Yeah.
when you have a parent that's just so horrible that they're the role model of what you should not be,
Yes.
these are the tips that I gave you. But I really do think sometimes INFJs stay small because they don't know who they can be themselves with, which is why one of the most important sayings that I've come across is find people who speak your language so you don't spend a lifetime translating your soul.
Mm-hmm.
Because if
That's good
you are
insight.
around
Yeah.
people where you have to dilute yourself around, that you have to be less of your potential around, you'll get used to it and you'll accidentally be this way around everywhere.
Mhm.
And so if you have to stay small around one person, you have to stay small around all of the other people too, because it's hard to switch modes. It's hard to context switch. So if you are so used to downplaying or watering yourself down, that doesn't just stick to one area of your life. It's going to ripple on to other areas. And so I think a lot of INFJs stay small, partly because their extroverted feelings sometimes will blend in with the environment to make other people feel calm and at peace, or their well-being is taken care of at the expense of themselves. Or they just, NI is a very introverted function. So you might have these insights that you just don't share with people because you don't see the need to mention them right now.
Mm.
And so you have this well of wisdom, this pearl inside an oyster that goes unseen because it just hasn't been tapped into yet. Whether or not it's because you haven't met someone curious enough to ask about it, or you just are used to being around people who don't appreciate it. So you hold the treasure within you, which is such a injustice to the world, or it's
Mhm.
such it does the world a disservice because it's not able to see the beauty of your essence.
Yeah.
And you could change people's lives with that. The parts that we are most afraid to share are the parts that make us big. And so um, the lesson here is to be obvious. Instead of stay small, be obvious so that the people who are meant to find you can see your bat signal. They're like, all right, I can actually recognize this person. Because if you stay your whole life in camouflage, no one will see who you actually are because you're hiding within the bushes and you're the same color as the bushes.
Mhm.
How is your soulmate or whoever was meant to find you find you?
Yeah.
You're making an effort to make this a game of hide and seek.
Mhm.
And so be big. Be that.
Be big is great advice. And that's it's simple because for the INFJ will intuit, I know what you mean. I get what you're saying. Like I could be bigger in every aspect, my career, speaking up for myself, family members, drawing lines with people, boundaries, and then also that putting yourself out there because I think the negative with INFJs is that um, they if they can get run over by a more dominant. I've seen so many relationships, and I feel like I see the SE DOMs, especially ESTP or ESFP, date INFJs because I don't, SE might be pushy or TE might be pushy, um, and just sees that like poor cowering sheep in the corner that will take care of me and will never impose. And some of the stronger INFJs I've met not are assertive. They assert their INFJ-ness in a way that is like, I know my line with this person, and I'm not, and I know what they are, but I'm not going to bulldoze them because that crosses their line. But I feel like, well, that's all I want to say on that. Don't get bulldozed too.
Yeah, and sometimes people in your life might say things that make you feel like you won't amount to something too, because you're different than them. Sometimes there are INFJs who may feel weaker with day-to-day common sense. It's like, oh, maybe they don't do their chores well, or maybe they don't do normal sensory things well, and people underestimate them because of that. And don't live up to what people might say about you, because they might say some really horrible things about you, and your FE might absorb the emotional impact of how they're feeling and you'll take it in.
Mm,
And so don't do that because they are wrong. And I know that you want to be considerate and consider their worldview, but sometimes it's poison to take other people too seriously because they don't know what they're saying about you. Because sometimes when we're like icebergs, people only see the toppest, most superficial layer and they
mhm,
judge it. And that takes away from the beauty of the beneath the iceberg.
mhm.
And so if you let someone's judgment get to you, you're letting 90% of your beauty go unseen, because now you've decided, because someone judged the top 10% of the iceberg, you're giving them permission to take away your privilege to show the rest of your beauty. And that's a disservice to the world because your beauty is meant to be shown.
Mhm.
As you said before, Joe, NI is an insight or something that should be given to the world. It's made so that we can bring it forth into the world.
Right. Yeah. And very in the very distinct way that INTJs have a certain way of using TE to show and make NI present. Um, where do you think that the uniqueness? How does FE bring the uniqueness of NI out for the INFJ?
Yeah, INFJs really excel in insight and foresight. And so they're very good at being either a guide or a sage.
Mm,
So they're able to bring people advice about humanity or about something deep about human relationships.
hmm.
So the cycle of human relationships, where something is going, the trajectory of people's actions in a very humanitarian way. And so they're the long seeing humanitarians.
Okay. So they're not interested in saving a single person. They're interested in saving humanity as a whole.
It could be either one depending on the kind of INFJ, but they're going to have a more than just the right now picture of that person. They're not just trying to meet your immediate needs. So sometimes when people help you, they're buying you cookies or stuff. An INFJ is going to look at the picture of your whole life and how to bring you down a path of a better outcome.
Right.
And so they're trying to give you a bigger picture look at your life so that your actions go into a more positive direction instead of a negative one. So they're almost trying to figure out what would bring up the best version of you versus the worst version of you and try to emotionally bring you to that place. So, or all trying to figure out what needs are unmet in you and
Mm,
why that causes certain actions you do that have long-term implications. And how can you meet those needs in a healthier way so that you're not as destructive in your life? There are two kinds of actions, life-giving actions and destructive actions. And
mm,
so it's figuring out, all right, what is destructive in the long term? Even in a metaphysical way, what beliefs or thought patterns does this
right.
person have that can cause destruction in their lives? And how can we push it so that it's not going to be that kind of thinking?
Yeah, and I feel like the investment that an INFJ will make in someone they care about is both good and bad for the person receiving the investment. Because when you're trying to change someone's like on that level, you're not bringing them cookies. You're not just bringing them medicine. To fix acute problems. You're talking about long term underlying, but the problem is that fixing is why I believe sometimes INFJs can get into destructive relationships but then never get out. Or they're always trying to fix a person that I can do this, like I know I just if they I spend long enough time with them, I'll eventually be able to fix them. They can get into relationships, they'll never divorce, they'll stay there forever, thinking this project is gonna eventually come to fruition. Do you see that at all?
That could happen, especially if an INFJ has anxious attachment style too. I
Okay.
do have a little bit of a martyr complex
Mm,
just because there's something very meaningful about helping someone. And so if you notice, oh, there's this person who could benefit from my help, it's tempting because you feel like you have a purpose.
Right.
And so sometimes we have superpowers, and if those superpowers aren't being used in a positive way, we can get misdirected and use them for places that are more destructive.
Mm-hmm.
So INFJs are really good at providing a very long-term or nurturing and intensive soul deep help. But if it's directed towards destructive, abusive relationships, that can be very not beneficial. And because INFJs can see the perspective of the other person, they may not always blame the other person for being the way that they are. They're like, all right, I can see why you see things the way that you see them.
Mm.
And so an actual piece of advice for INFJs is to not make excuses for other people's behavior because,
Mm.
yeah, that's not how good for you.
Just because you can meta perspective or perspective shift doesn't mean that you need to like make excuses. Well, is this just like people that are close to them, or is this just like, well, I can see why that guy on TV did that thing, or is it who are we defending in this case?
It could be with anywhere you lack boundaries. So let's say that there's a client that insults you at work, and instead of wanting to insult them back, there's a part of you that wants to do that too. You also understand why they said what they said, and you take their words too seriously. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like almost not wanting to defend yourself because you also can see their point too. And even in close relationships, maybe you can see why certain people are treating you a certain way. And so it makes you tolerate their behavior for longer than you should. And it actually eats away at your self esteem. The longer that you tolerate behaviors that hit you in certain ways, the longer that, okay, hit is typically used in a physical way, like people punching you. But
Right.
if you accept emotional blows, like someone saying things to you over and over again, it can actually cause your self-esteem to pummel.
Yeah.
And your confidence in your own goals or direction in your life to crumble too. You're just going to crumble as a
Yeah.
whole because you'll not be able to feel confidence in the wake of other people's opinions because you can't differentiate their opinion from how you feel about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this video is sponsored by myself.
You
So I sponsor my own video. So
go buy the book.
go buy the book. Yeah. Signed copies are out. It's on Etsy. It's on Amazon. It's on Kindle. I am like 75% done with the audiobook. It's really hard to do. And hearing yourself recorded is really a horrifying experience. So it's just like, wow, do I really sound like that? So Joyce, thank you for promoting my stuff, for having me on the Enneagram conversation earlier this month, Chris. That was awesome. A little bit different style there. But let's do it again soon. I'll have something else that will come to me in a dream, and I'll be like, I need to have Joyce on the show for that. So thank you for being here.
Sounds good. I'll see you then.
I tried to live without you, just can't get